Hello everyone, welcome back to OCD Recovery's YouTube channel. Today I have a special video. A couple days ago, Rob did a post talking about his 50 biggest tips for OCD recovery. Now he's done a couple since then. He's done 20 tips about hope, 30 pieces of advice about medication. So I'm going to go through and make videos on every single one and add my little twist to it and maybe see where maybe Rob and I maybe differ on some of them, but we don't. So I got a couple new shirts. So I had the same like 8 dress shirts and I've been recycling them. So I have 5 new dress shirts. 2 of them are flannels and they look like I'm about to go chop wood in the forest. So this is Rob's 50 OCD recovery tips. If you see me look, I have my computer right here. So I'm looking at what they are. So number 1, cut out as many compulsions as you can. The reason why Rob put this and the reason why we talk about this is but compulsive behaviors, rash, immediate decisions, black and white impulses, which are not easy to bring down for some, harder for other people like myself. But bring down compulsions fuel the cycle. Now we hear people say stuff like pure O. The reason why we have themes, ROCD, POCD, because it comes in direction to what your fear is. The reason why pure O doesn't make any sense and why we should, more than likely get rid of that terminology is because it substantiates a belief that there is a type of obsessive compulsive disorder that's just obsessions. I have broken this down many times. There's no such thing as that. And people think they're treatment resistant, that they're different. People would say HOCD don't think they're maybe treatment resistant. Well, everyone does in some way in the journey. But, pure O is like, well, there's no compulsion. There's nothing to bring down. It's not true. There's internal thermometers going on. There's internal checking that's going on because you're scared. So it's just a misunderstanding and why we don't use that term. Number 2, stop talking about OCD constantly. This is huge for many people. I have struggled with this on and off for the last 2 years. I've gotten a lot better with it. Anytime you're feeling a discomfort or urge, you don't have to go to the WhatsApp groups or the Facebook group and post about it. Now, there's nothing wrong with doing this in a balanced manner, maybe 1-2 times a week. Even with someone like me, right? I moderate. I'm in 7-8 different WhatsApp groups. I talk to people. I have my own account, a guy who hikes. If you're always wondering who that is, that's answering comments. That's my personal one. And I do moderating. And it needs a balance. For someone like me, if I don't balance that, it kind of gets away from me. And I don't need to talk about it all day long. Number 3, don't read OCD endlessly. This is really important. OCD is already all-consuming. What we want to do is bring OCD for the ride, but we kind of want to separate that from our lives. And what the main goal is to build healthy life structures, go back to work, do all these things that build a healthy life, just balance. You don't have to avoid caffeine, balance. You don't have to avoid alcohol, balance, unless you struggle with alcoholism. We're not talking about the extreme cases and stuff like that. Number 4, don't try and avoid everything to do with OCD. This is a big one. I've known many people and talked to many people who get some relief and then they get convinced by other people that they're spending too much time and they run. This kind of leaves the door open. Think about it for a little bit. Let's say you're in one of the WhatsApp groups. You've been in there for 2 years. You're doing really good. After a couple weeks, maybe a month of thinking about it, maybe spending 15, 20 minutes a day journaling about it. Maybe I don't want to be a part of this anymore, but don't trick yourself into thinking that you're never going to come across OCD again. That's a problem. You're more than likely going to come across OCD talks. If you're trying to avoid OCD based off the fear of it making your OCD worse, let's say you're in the supermarket and you look down, you see People Magazine and Howie Mandel talking about his OCD, right? Front cover People Magazine, which I've seen. You freak out. So you can't just avoid OCD forever. That's just leaving the door open for fear of fear. Okay. So number 5, stop looking for people with the exact same fear as you. This is a big one. This is a form of self-reassurance. It's also problematic. You could be the only person with your particular type of fear. We use caterpillars. You don't have a caterpillar OCD. Maybe you're afraid of caterpillars. Well, you have to break down why you're afraid of caterpillars. Maybe you want to do some exposures by putting caterpillars on your hand and sitting with discomfort. And maybe you want to move that unconditional life acceptance that caterpillars exist in this life. But what many people will do would say maybe harm OCD, they'll start avoiding places where they drive and stuff like that. So looking for people that have the exact same symptoms as you is actually self-reassurance. It's good to find comfort being like, oh, I'm not the only one, but it kind of needs to stop at that. Number 6, stop testing how anxious you are constantly. Put the anxiety thermometer down. Rob and I talk about this all the time. I say I coined it. I kind of stole it from Rob. But the internal thermometer, I talk about this a lot. The reason why that internal thermometer is flickering at all moments throughout the day is because you're still scared. When you're still scared, the internal thermometer will flicker. As the fear comes down, the internal thermometer will come down over time. This is very hard for people to understand because they say to me, how do you bring down rumination X amount a day? I want to stop ruminating. Well, you can bring down some of the outward physical rumination where you're sitting down to think and try and figure it out. But the automatic rumination is going to fire on autopilot until the fear comes down. It's really important to talk about. Don't put deadlines on recovery. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. Deadlines are absolutely horrific for any type of mental health recovery. Everyone responds differently. And when you set deadlines, when people are telling you deadlines set in stone, everyone's different. Some people might recover in 18 months. Some people might recover in 6 years. Everyone's different. I know it's hard to hear, but it's the absolute truth. I can tell you this. I've never met anyone with chronic OCD recovery who has reached a very, very robust area of recovery with acceptance in less than 1 year. That's my personal experience. I could be wrong on that. Number 8, stop trying to wish it away or longing for the time before you had OCD. I say this all the time. You don't want to go back to who you were. The person who you were got you to where you were. That's like saying, I want to go back to the person that made all these terrible decisions in my life to lead up to being a heroin addict. No, you don't. You want to recover from a heroin addict and build a new life structure. That person for you is gone. And I understand it's really easy to fall back into that mindset. But unfortunately, the more we think about that mindset and the less we actually move away from it, the harder it is to actually get away from it. So that person's gone. Unconditional self-acceptance, unconditional life acceptance. It's time to build a new you, a more rational you, someone who's better with critical thinking, someone who's better with rationale, someone who doesn't respond in very heightened emotional states and go from there. It's very important. Number 9, stop repeating mantras or telling yourself constantly, it's just a thought. This is compulsive. I don't recommend mantras, whether you have OCD or not. I think they can be beneficial, but I think it's very easy to state a mantra. I always say this, humans are information gatherers. Excuse me. It's really easy to build information, gather it, and actually not put it into practice. So it's really easy to sit there and envision who you want to be. And visioning, and we know that rational emotive imagery, which is one of the tools in Albert Ellis's work, can have good, can be good. But when you're an OCD sufferer and you're walking around all day using these mantras to actually bring down a fear response, this is potentially problematic. So we don't need mantras, and we don't want to have internal conversations all day long. And that's what we talk about, engaging versus disputing your irrational beliefs, which I highly recommend watching that video. A lot of people who ask me about acceptance are like, well, you're talking about engaging. No, we're not. It's two separate things. So number 10, Rob went a little Gary Vaynerchuk on this one. This is why I liked it. Mom's job is not to cure your OCD. This is absolutely true. Same thing with Erica. Anytime I have a relapse or a setback, Erica has learned that she has to, which are far in between now, much further in between, being almost 2 years into a recovery process. So she says, I'm not going to sit here and baby you. I'm not going to sit here and scratch your arm. You need to put the work in. You need to get yourself better. Tough love is absolutely vital with OCD recovery. Now, it's not just tough love. You need tough love, but you also need self-compassion. It needs to be a balance. But some people might need a little bit more tough love than others, because if you don't give them that tough love and you don't give them that eye-opening realization, or at least instill the seed might never grow inside them. But they're the one that has to water it, okay? If I give you the seed to recovery, the knowledge and what I think works, you have to plant the seed, you have to water the seed, you have to pull the weeds, you have to watch the seed. You are the one that actually is going through the process. All I did was just give you the seed. If I can give you a bucket of seeds and they can sit in your backyard and they can never grow. I like that. I made that up right there. Number 11, you don't need to tell everyone about your OCD or have it as a username. OCD is not our identity, the same as asthma is. If you want to share it in a non-compulsive way, that's fine, but only if you want to, not because you need to. This is the same thing for identity politics, identity religion, identity money. People love identity basketball. People love attaching, something simple like, I'm a basketball player. Not really. You're just a person who plays basketball. It's a subtle difference, but it's absolutely true. You're not a weightlifter. You're just a person who lifts weights. You're not a skier. You're just a person who skis. You are a person, because if you say I'm a skier, then your identity is I am a downhill competitive skier. But what about all the other things you like? You're also a pizza eater. Maybe not. You might have pineapple on pizza. That's a cardinal sin. Rob will know when he watches this. We don't do pineapple on pizza in New Jersey, all right? Don't make the Jersey accent come out. But, it's important to cover that. And I just totally lost my train. See what pineapple pizza does? Pineapple pizza makes me lose my train of thought. But it's important to realize you don't have to do that. This is why, my old account was a OCD chiropractor, and I think, it doesn't need to be that. Why am I doing that? So that's why it's now a guy who hikes. I think it's a lot better. Obviously, Rob being OCD Recovery UK is for so people can find him and stuff like that. But he doesn't walk around all day and say, "Hi, I'm Rob, I have OCD." We don't do that. So number 12, there's no key to recovery, which you'll hear in one sentence, and OCD will be unlocked and gone forever. This is something I've struggled with and something that a lot of people struggle with. OCD can't be cracked overnight, unfortunately. It's something that takes time to see it through, and there's not one tip, 2 tips, or 3 tips that's going to bring you to that process. The list of what it entails to go through OCD recovery is short. Uncertainty, exposures, unconditional self-life, other acceptance, time, patience, determination, 10 words, cliche words. But that doesn't mean it's easy. The process is sticky, many ups and downs, relapses, doubts, backdoor spikes, and stuff like that. So nothing I tell you is going to just unlatch OCD in a matter of seconds. Recovery takes time and practice. Frustrating, I know, but part of the process we have to walk. Jade's video from 2 weeks ago stated something beautifully in her first tip. OCD recovery, she's the first one to ever say it like this. She is correct, in my opinion. OCD recovery will take much longer than you think it will. Not a little, much. Most of us, because we're so conditioned to getting a cold and going to the doctors and getting some antibiotics and being better in 8 days, 12 days. You know what I mean? That's not reality. Many people won't even see relief for a couple months. Not everyone. Some people will see a drastic onion layer be peeled off when they realize, this is what's going on. That's what happened with me. But I still had chronic anxiety for an extended period of time before I saw any shifts whatsoever. Number 14, there are no supplements or diet plans. He made a typo right there. Rob, you made a typo. You put there are no spelling supplements. I can't even say it now. Anyway, you put of instead of or. But there are no supplements or diet plans that cure OCD. Absolutely not. Supplements, something now we're going into my realm of where my doctoral research is at. Supplements are the least most important thing for general health. Anyone who understands nutrition understands that. It's the cliche, you can't out-supplement a bad diet. That's not exactly true, but there's some merit to it. That's absolutely true for OCD recovery. Eating healthy is good. Showing yourself frustration tolerance, you can cook at home and stuff like that. And there's nothing wrong with eating pizza and cookies and cake. I love all that stuff. I love sweets, but it needs to be balanced like most things in life. 15, meds can take the edge off, but won't cure it. It's not out yet, but I'm doing a 10-part series, mini-series, 5 to 10-minute videos on 10 misconceptions. We've done videos, but now we're actually breaking it down to its own little mini-series, which I think will be really cool. And I'm on number 6. I did that about 20 minutes ago, talking about why meds can take the edge off, but usually won't cure. There's no shame in taking meds. If you're afraid of taking meds, fear of rejection, that's something else you'll probably need to work on. But, it is important to talk about that stuff. Page number 2. OCD is usually misunderstood. This isn't mean. It's just the truth. I have talked to many people who have, and just using this as an example, I'm not putting anyone down, who have masters and PhD in psychology, who don't know anything about OCD, but they treat it, which is problematic. I don't like to use the word dangerous, but it's problematic. They just don't know. Just like any of us wouldn't know unless we wouldn't have it. In order to see OCD, truly, a lot of the ways, unless you work with it all the time, the internal thermometer is almost impossible to really understand unless you have OCD. I've never heard it be explained properly at all. I'm not trying to put anyone down. I'm just talking about the reality. For mental health, there's a weird thing about this because in addiction, like my buddy's 10 years sober from heroin, dead sober, no alcohol, no heroin. He says to me, when we're talking to people and helping people, whether it's AA or outsourcing, they want to listen to the person who's been there. This isn't to say that other people can't help them. There's plenty of PhDs in addiction research that do amazing work looking for cures. But, the terminology where they're like, I completely understand where you're coming from and all this stuff, they don't, which is frustrating to the sufferer. It's about working together and playing with our roles or what they're good for. Number 17, mild OCD and chronic OCD differ. Chronic usually needs a deeper level of acceptance and understanding. Chronic POCD will not unlatch without acceptance. Chronic sensory motor OCD will not unlatch without acceptance. When I say will not, I'm talking 99.9%. Maybe there's an anomaly. But usually, most chronic OCD, harm OCD, existential OCD, I can name ROCD, solipsism OCD, anything that's really chronically latched, body dysmorphia, like all these type of things usually need some sort of unconditional self-like other acceptance mixed in there with uncertainty and exposures when used necessary in a non-compulsive manner. Number 18, thoughts or thoughts often doesn't cut it when OCD has been latched a long time with guilt and anxiety lingering latched in the background. Understanding that a thought is almost a form of mindfulness. You're being aware of what's going on inside of you, whether it's a sensation, intrusive thought, images, urge, and stuff like that. But when you're utterly convinced you are a serial killer and you're utterly convinced you will harm your kid, this will not get you far. Same thing with sensory motor, what I went through. Terrible sensory motor. I was in the mental hospital. Again, most people, vast majority will not end up there. We just didn't know what was going on in my 0 to 100 mentality. So it was something that really needed to be worked on. And I knew that thoughts or thoughts wasn't going to bring me to it. Now, it does have benefits. Beginning stages of OCD recovery, milder cases, but the unconditional acceptance is usually what we see produces the longest lasting results. Okay. Going into 19. Mindfulness alone usually doesn't cut it if for long-term recovery. I have been meditating again. It's a New Year's goal of mine. I don't ever do New Year's resolutions. This is my first time in my life, but I'm going to make it. I'm going to try this one. We'll see how long it lasts. I'm pretty good with sticking with things like that. But I understand that the mindfulness is for a different thing. I'm being more trying for a preference of being calm at night before I go to sleep because my mind tends to race about the business and helping people with OCD. So I'm trying to separate things better in my life so it doesn't become as mixed and compulsive. That's just a personal choice. I'm not doing mindfulness in order to escape a discomfort. I'm not doing mindfulness in order to escape a discomfort. That is a stone that needs to be turned over because many people believe that you could just go about your day all day being mindful and meditating all day. There's nothing wrong with meditation and there's nothing wrong with mindfulness, but it can become compulsive when people are using it to, get away from discomfort. Okay. Number 20, fear is an illusion. All fears. The fear sensation itself, the physiologic response to fear is normal. But just because something is normal doesn't mean it's healthy. I just finished reading Albert Ellis's anger book, How to Control Your Anger Before It Controls You, for the second time. I read it on the plane when I was coming back from Jersey. And it's great. He talks about anger being a natural human reaction, but most of the times it doesn't get us what we want. Fear is the same thing. Fear hinders people's lives. We're not talking about going somewhere moronic, like you're like, I'm not going to jump into a pit of snakes. That's not what we're talking about here. Number 21, avoidance is never the answer. Never. Unless we're talking about, you struggle with alcoholism. What are you doing? She's barking at me. She's about to bark again. What? Come here. Give me 1 second, please. All right, come on. Come on. No, you brats. So, and we get a lot of kickback on this because, like I said, fear is a natural response in the human body, but excessive fear, I can't see having any benefits for most people. So, and that's what I think about that. Okay. We talk about avoidance is never the answer. Number 2, you can't relabel a thought as an OCD thought and move on when utterly convinced it's real, usually. So, a lot of people ask, how can I tell the difference between an OCD thought and a non-OCD thought? And you can't. That's part of the uncertainty. If we could just label things as OCD thoughts and, this is an OCD thought and that's not. Kirsty's talked about this very elegantly in many of her earlier videos from 6 months to 16 months ago. She does a great job of explaining on why this kept her stuck. So it's not that easy. in theory, I could understand when you're like, oh, okay, this is OCD. But when you're walking around all day telling yourself that, it usually becomes a compulsive reassurance mantra. Okay. The exposure you put off is usually the most important recovery step. Yeah. So this is something that Rob and I had to work on a lot, especially with a lot of my body fears. He knew that there was things that I needed to do in order to push myself forward, and I was very hesitant. I actually screamed at him. I was actually yelling. This is a while ago with him and me and my wife, and he was right, per usual. Don't let that go to your head, Rob, on this, because it was an exposure I was putting off. And doing an exposure cannot make your OCD worse. You might feel worse short-term temporarily, increase anxiety, but it's not going to make your OCD worse and not allow you to recover. That's a big, important thing. Number 24, family and friends usually won't understand OCD, and you don't need them to. A bonus if they do, but not a necessity. I cannot tell you the amount of times I literally screamed at Erica, "You don't understand," and it did nothing for my own recovery. Not only did it make me look like a complete asshole, and she thought I was being an asshole and a dick, but it didn't do anything for me, because obviously she doesn't understand. No, any more than you and me can understand what it's like to be blind, or you and me can understand what it's like to have stage 4 pancreatic cancer like my father. Like, you only understand these things when you're going through those things yourself. So like you and me and other men, we don't understand what it's like to be pregnant. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to be able to give birth. I know it's a hot topic when we talk about, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm using it as an example of like a female or someone giving birth. Like, I am not going to know what that feels like. So it's just something to talk about. There's no such thing as treatment-resistant OCD. Number 5, perfect halfway point. This is also true for PTSD and GAD. Rob does not have this here, or BDD. Body dysmorphic disorder, GAD, generalized anxiety disorder, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. What they're doing in the DSM-6 in the literature I've read is they're separating OCD out and making its own anxiety-based disorder. That's what the research was showing. But all of them are some sort of OCRD, obsessive compulsive related disorders. Okay? Even PTSD has an obsessive component to it and a compulsive component to it. Let's say you have survivor's guilt from a helicopter crash. This is a real example I'm using of someone I know, or that, my wife knows. Avoiding going out is the compulsion. And then the irrational beliefs are fueling it. Same exact thing for body dysmorphic disorder. Same thing for GAD. Okay, there's no such thing as treatment resistant. It just might be a little bit harder to see those beliefs. They're all beliefs. What genetic and environmental factors obviously portraying into that. That's how genetics works. 26. Recovery is a journey we walk alone. Others can guide us, but we have to walk it. Take responsibility for that is key. Taking responsibility. Man, I fucked up with this one a lot. You got to go alone. The seed analogy I was using before, Rob gave me the seeds. Kirsty helped give me some seeds. Other people in recovery gave me some seeds. Before I was Hannah. Hannah's amazing. Even though I make fun of her all the time privately. She's amazing. She's done great things in the beginning of my OC recovery journey, being in my original WhatsApp group. She helped me a lot. So did Kirsty and Phil and everyone. So they gave me the seeds, but I needed to plant them. I was the one that needed to water them, like I said. Watch for the weeds and everything like that. Or else my recovery wasn't going to grow. It would have just sat there in the corner, and that's not good either. Milo and Daisy are walking past my camera. That's why it was just shaking. Okay, number 27. Nobody owes us recovery. This goes into the self-pity route, and I understand that it's really easy to go into self-pity, but we have to remember that, it's nobody's job to actually get us better but our own. And let's just leave it at that, because that's really important. Number 28. Stop Googling future cures. You have what you need right now. We have everything we need right now. Let the researchers, the PhDs, the psychiatrists, the ones who are working in the laboratory, the ones who are actually doing neuro research, let them handle that. Maybe one day, 15 years from now, they're like, yo, we've been doing this clinical trial. It's in stage 2. We took all these people with severe harm OCD and we gave them this pill and they said it's like they don't have OCD. Where's Daisy at? Oh, hey, bud. And that's really important to talk about because we don't need that right now. What we need is unconditional self-life, other acceptance, moving with uncertainty, exposures, and so forth. That's what we need. Number 29, exercise forms a part of a healthy life structure. Very helpful recovery. But it can be unbalanced. I just want to start with that for myself. But exercise is amazing. Getting out there, showing yourself, especially for sensory motor breathing OCD, man, going out there and going for a hike, going for a walk, running on the treadmill, not for direct exposures, but trying to get healthy, you're going to be triggered. So, you're going to be triggered at the gym no matter what. Maybe you have harm OCD, fear of harming other people. What if I drop a dumbbell on someone's foot? All these other things. Number 30, life is short. Be proactive. Don't keep putting off recovery. More than likely, you're going to die, and that's going to be it. That's just my personal belief. As Albert Ellis says, it's more than likely. Can't say for sure. I can't say for sure the one life you're ever going to live. Because I'm agnostic. I don't believe or not believe. Just what I think. So I think that, one day in the near future, my life is going to be over, and that's going to be a bleep in the existence of humanity. I love talking about existential stuff. Okay, last page. These are all really short ones. Number 31, besides this one. Whoever you choose as a coach or therapist, make sure they have a thorough understanding of OCD. Haven't just worked with mild OCD. Chronic OCD needs a thorough understanding. Mild OCD needs a thorough understanding, but they can get away with uncertainty and moving with, the unknown. Maybe don't really have to go into unconditional self-life, other acceptance. Might pop up here and there. I know someone right now who has mild OCD. They've had it for 55 years. And when I talked about my OCD journey and they watched some of my videos, they said, wow, it's never been like that for me. It's like a step below. This is why I think they've been able to cruise pretty much their entire life without any sort of chronic anxiety or really being latched. Number 32, persistence is the key ingredient. That's like anything in life. You start a business, you want to, be healthy, balanced relationship. You want to get better from an addiction. You want to balance your caffeine usage. You want to balance your coffee usage. That's the same thing. Gym usage, anything like that. Persistence is the key ingredient. Determination, persistence. Number 33, complaining is a zero return investment. Here goes Rob and the Gary Vaynerchuk. But he's right. It's so easy to go into the self-pity route, but they always talk about let's turn that around and kind of refocus that self-pity into how lucky we are to have the ability to get better and go through a recovery journey that's going to benefit us potentially in a way that we couldn't even imagine. Even working on OCD recovery for almost 2 years, I can tell you my outlook on life it's like I was reborn from an eggshell. I still have things I have to work on. I'm not where I'd like to be, but I've made tremendous progress, and that's super important. Daisy just keeps growling at me every time I don't scratch her. Progress is down to us. Don't really need to talk about that too much, but as we said, as I talked about a lot already, that progress has to come from you. Other people can be there and be benefits and support systems, but it's got to come from you. 35. We won't notice progress instantly and often only see it when looking back. Shifts are often small at times with leaps at others. Steve Jobs' 2004 commencement speech when he was first diagnosed with stage 1, I think it was, it doesn't really matter what it was, but it was a type of neuroendocrine type of pancreatic cancer. I love that one because he goes, I didn't even know what a pancreas was. One of the richest guys on earth. Very dedicated to technology. But he said something along the lines of, you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect the dots looking backwards, so you have to have faith in something. He goes, I don't care what that faith is. That is absolutely true. It's really hard to see progress from a day to day. If you're looking for progress moment to moment, you're not going to see it. And you're going to be compulsively trying to analyze, which is not good. Number 36. Recovery isn't linear. There are a lot of peaks and troughs that level out over time. Don't forget, though, some of our worst days will be followed by our best days. When Rob used to say this, I would think, oh my God, there's no way that's going to happen. But it did. I've had 3 days followed by 3 horrible days. I've had 1 hour, good hour followed by a horrible hour. And it goes up and down. That's just part of the recovery journey. There's plenty of videos talking about the up and down process, setbacks and relapses, and backdoor spikes. Number 37 and 38, I'm going to combine. Setbacks can happen at any time, and setbacks don't equal square one. You could literally be having, this is just an arbitrary example, 25 good days and you turn a corner and something happens and you just automatically relapse. almost like the light switch moment. That's literally how relapses can feel. And it's so easy to go down the road of being like, I'm back at square one. I'm never going to get better again. And that's a really, really unfortunate thing that we all have to go through. And what's helped me when I have those setback moments is to realize that, even if there was such thing as square one, which there isn't, because you've learned all this new information, even if you feel like that right now, it gives you another opportunity to move forward. That's so hard. I thought that to myself when I was crying, like, oh no. And like, it's so easy to go down the self-pity route. We're not shaming anyone for going down that route. It's very understandable. We're just highlighting that over time you want to bring that down because it doesn't do anything for us. That's what's important. Number 39 with those, setbacks feel like you've never improved. We can all relate to that. Just part of the OCD recovery journey, part of the tricks. Number 40, approach recovery one day at a time. In the beginning of recovery, I used to set these major, major goals in the beginning, like, these things that didn't make any sense. And it really, really got me in trouble. But over time, I had to realize that wasn't going to get me anywhere. It's got to be maybe moment by moment. There's a great documentary called Indiana State Prison documentary. It's on YouTube, 2 parts, with Trevor McDonald. And he was talking to a guy that had been in jail for, what was he in for at that time? In the first one, 42 years, I think. And he goes, sometimes you have to take it moment by moment. Sometimes it's minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day. And that's a really important concept when you're in the beginning stages of OCD recovery, because it can feel so encompassing that it just feels as if you're kind of just drowning, and I'm sure many of you can relate to that. And by the way, I haven't said this yet because I've kind of been in the groove. Let me know if you agree with any of these. If you don't agree with some of them, let me know how you're feeling about this video. If you're still with me at already 33 minutes and we still have 10 more to go. These are really important to us. A lot of these I feel very strongly about because I've seen them work for me and seen them work for hundreds of other people over the last couple of years. And Rob has seen, the reason why he put these, working with OCD for over a decade, thousands, tens of thousands of people. So, number 41, bring anxiety for the ride. Don't try and force it away. Internally trying to rid yourself or force it turns it up. This is why we talk about the importance of building a healthy lifestyle structure and really bring OCD along for the ride with you. If you focus your entire life on OCD recovery, the rest of your life is going to go by. You got to bring it with you in a non-compulsive manner, and there's going to be a learning process figuring, too much, too little, and it's going to take some time to really get it right. There's so many moving parts to this journey that are so many different learning processes that help you really kind of just slow down and think of things in a more meticulous, rational manner instead of those like instant, like, oh, I'm feeling anxiety today, I can't go see anyone, and that stuff will need to be brought down over time. And I'm definitely someone who struggled with that a lot. How you feel now doesn't equal forever. That's the truth. When you're stuck in the midst of a relapse or a setback, or you're in the beginning and you've never made any recovery, or maybe you felt good for a year and had a really bad relapse, you could still get better. And that's super important to talk about. The feeling you're feeling right now is not a determining factor of your recovery process. That really keeps a lot of people stuck. So think about that one. Number 43. Your future self is thanking you for the work you are putting in today. Any mental health recovery journey person would say that. Addiction, anything where something is going on in your life that's hindering your quality of life, and you have the ability and the knowledge to get better, going through hardship, determination, persistence, all those things to get to a place where that person, if they were waiting there, imaginary, kind of like when Harry Potter died in the 8th Harry Potter movie and he had the resurrection stone and Dumbledore was waiting for him. It's like going there and that person talking to you and saying to you, look at what you did. This is an amazing thing. So it's a weird example, but think about it. There's some validity to it. Number 44, recovery doesn't happen on its own. And there's one after that. OCD recovery doesn't go away with age. So 44 and 45. Super important to talk about. A lot of people think if they just move with uncertainty and leave OCD there, it will kind of get better over time. And that's not true. If someone has really chronic OCD, terrible, they need to work on unconditional self-life, other acceptance with exposures, and uncertainty. If you just leave it there with uncertainty, it more than likely will not only stay the same, it will probably get worse over the years, because that's what OCD likes to do. It wants to take your life and put it in a small box. It's not out to get you. It's just a disorder of the brain that's trying to, you're not broken. It's just, you are just a person with this one particular aspect of your life that right now might be ruling a little bit more of your life than you want. And you kind of bring that down with the tools that we know. Number 46. If you read a book, finish it. Don't skim or jump book to book. This is for any book. This is something I really struggle with. It doesn't matter if it's the books on the reading list, a fitness book, an accounting book. I'm reading a book right now talking about corporations, okay, by Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. Boy, that book is dull. But if I read the book, even if I don't learn anything from it, there's something I think about. I put myself in a situation to read this 400-page boring book on taxes and law. And maybe I learned one thing, but even if I don't learn anything, I still taught myself to build that frustration tolerance. See, you could turn all these situations into things that can help you in recovery. We'll do that because this segment of the video might run out. Number 47, don't jump therapist to therapist looking for a quick fix. This is the same thing for medication. Stick with a therapist. Even this is a good exposure. You don't have to stay forever. Maybe you go to a therapist for 6 months, 3 months in, you're thinking this person just doesn't understand OCD. Maybe you go, once every other week for another 2 months to talk about what you're learning here or talk about what you're learning from other sources. And maybe that person will be more receptive to listening to you. Once you get a degree, a lot of people think that they're above everyone. I think that's just a natural, innate human response because we're all bred to have conditional acceptance. When I got my doctorate degree, you don't think you're better than people, but you're like, oh, I'm this person, whether it's a medical doctor, chiro, physical therapist, psychologist, PhD, biochemist. There's a lot of conditional acceptance with that. But, realizing that you don't have to leave that therapist and you can talk to them and, they might not ever listen to you, might tell you that you're wrong. That's okay because it's still a good exposure for building frustration tolerance. Number 48, recovery isn't a quick fix. I've already talked about this. Usually going to take a lot longer than you want. Not forever in the grand scheme of life. When I talk to someone who's 18, I said, even if you suffer for 5 years, you at 23-year-old, at 23, you're going to have much better acceptance than I had at 23. You're going to be set. You're going to be indestructible in many ways. Not physically, but you know what I'm saying. Number 49, recovery is not rocket science, but takes longer than usual than we want. That goes right into 48. Not rocket science. We talked about those 10 things. Acceptance, unconditional life, other, uncertainty, exposure, determination, patience, resilience, dealing with grit. I love the word grit. It's just like a Western word. And I live in the desert. West, just grit. And then number 50, you got this. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're still with me, 40 minutes in, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like that video, share this video with other people. It just doesn't have to be OCD. It could be people dealing with other anxiety disorders. Comment down below. As I say, I always go through. And let me know for some more videos you want to see. The next one I'm going to be doing is breaking down the 30 points about medications that Rob just did and hope. So thank you so much. I hope you had happy holidays. It's December 28th, almost the new year. And have a great day.